Hi everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and I am here to do a review of Attack on Titan episode 12. And before I get this review started, I'm sure as some of you have noticed, it's been a couple of weeks since I've done any reviews, and obviously, for those who keep up with the channel, you will know for my last two reviews I did, which were of Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 9 and 10, that I was using a different webcam than the one I am now. And that was because, for any of my subscribers, my computer ended up crashing earlier this month, so I had to use a laptop while my computer was getting fixed. So so now my computer's back, and so now I can use the webcam and that I usually use for these reviews, and obviously it'll probably be of a lot better video quality. So first off, I'd like to apologize for my computer going all wonky and crashing. Apparently it got a virus, although honestly I'm not sure why, since I had Norton antivirus on my thing. So needless to say, I had some pretty angry words for Norton's tech support. Um, but luckily I got the issue resolved, and hopefully there won't be any other issues with the computer, knock on wood. So with that said, I believe the last review I did was of Attack on Titan. I think was either episode 8 or 9. So pretty much what happens, so the battle for Torst ended, and Eren comes out of the Titan body that he was in, and so people are trying to figure out exactly what went down. The higher ups are kind of trying to figure out whether or not they can trust Eren, and at first Eren doesn't really know what the hell's going on, because he really has no memory of becoming a Titan or any of the shit he did as a Titan. So pretty much he has to convince them that he can be trusted, even though he's not really sure what's happening. So he finds out through the higher ups kind of interrogating him, and he ends up getting interrogated by that one guy with the beard who has like the really crazy eyeballs. So he ends up getting kind of interrogated by him, and he's like essentially in front of a firing squad. And so Armin and Mikasa are trying to defend him, and so Eren ends up figuring out exactly what went down because of this, and so he figures out he turned into a Titan, and so it ends up becoming up to Armin to convince them that Eren's a good guy, and the way he does this is like, he convinces them not to kill Eren on the basis that Eren could be used as a weapon and that they can trust him, and he makes the argument that all of the Titans, they go after Eren just like they go after humans. So even though Eren can turn into a Titan, like, he's a good guy. And then when while that happens, I think in episode 10 or 11, we get introduced to a particular recon group who is behind Wall Rose, and they're in the land section between Wall Rose and Wall Maria, and they're kind of doing some reconnaissance work, and so we get introduced to them real quick, which was kind of fillery, but I'm sure we'll probably do something with those guys to justify taking a little detour and getting to know them. So after that happens, like I mentioned, Armin tries to convince the commander with the crazy eyes and the beard that Eren would make a good weapon. He's not really having it, so he tries to kill them. And Eren actually figures out how to use his Titan power. So apparently if he injures himself and he wills something hard enough, he can turn into a Titan to make that shit happen. So he does that, but he kind of only makes like a partial body, which he made mostly just to defend himself and Mikasa and Armin, and that's how they come up with the plan for Armin to try to convince the commander with the crazy eyes. So like I said, he's not really having it. Um, but luckily, at this moment, before they end up killing Armin and Mikasa and Eren, the commander, Dot Pixis, shows up, and he thinks that Armin's plan is pretty good. So they come up with a plan to use Eren as a Titan, to use him to move the big ass boulder and to block the hole in the wall to stop the Titans from coming in and to lure the Titans into a corner so Eren can do this as a Titan and then kill off all the remaining Titans so they can take back Torst. So, so that's what happened. And so they try to put this plan in action. And so Eren turns into a Titan, but it turns out that he doesn't have control over his body. So that's pretty much what happened from probably about episode 8 to about episode 11. So in this week's episode, we continue right where we picked off. So Eren can't control his body, and he tries to attack Mikasa, and Mikasa is there with an elite group of soldiers that are there to assist Eren in his goal, but unfortunately, their mission fails because Eren can't control his Titan body, so he's just a big, crazy killer Titan. Mikasa, like, she jumps on his face and she's like, Eren, like, don't you recognize me? And he doesn't, and Eren ends up, like, punching himself in the face really hard because he's trying to get Mikasa, but she jumps out of the way before he can hit her, so he just ends up, like, falcon punching himself in the face, which is rather hilarious. It's like, it kind of goes back to that old joke. It's like, why are you hitting yourself? Um, yeah, so that happens. The leader of the elite group, who's named Ian, he convinces his other subordinates to protect Eren because they figure that maybe they can try to rescue Eren and he can turn back into a person, and then they can try using his Titan body again. And so they kind of go off and start killing the Titans in the area to protect Eren, and obviously Mikasa's pretty happy about that, and then Ian kind of makes a crack at Mikasa about her protecting her boyfriend, and she starts blushing. She's like, no, no, he's not my boyfriend, he's like my family, and it's like Mikasa, like, nobody believes that. It's like, we all know you're into him. I have to say, initially, I wasn't super into Eren and Mikasa as a couple because I was originally, when the series started, I was under the impression that they were adopted siblings. But then obviously after we got the flashbacks episode, it's very apparent that Eren and Mikasa weren't adopted siblings, that they were kind of just more childhood friends, and that, Mikasa obviously went and lived with the Jaegers after her parents were murdered. So, so honestly, I'm a lot more okay with the potential for them to be a couple because, like, they're not doing, like, weird pseudo incest shit, which is, like, I'm not into that. It's like, I definitely don't want them to pull a Sword Art Online. It's like, I don't like weird incesty things. Like, I don't care if they're adopted. Like, just don't do that shit. It's weird. But I think now that they're pretty much like that, they're childhood friends. Like it makes a little bit more sense to me for them to be a couple because, like, they weren't ever actually family members. They were just friends. So that makes quite a bit more sense to me, and it's quite a bit less creepy. So I think if they do hook them up, I could definitely understand that. And obviously, Mikasa's like a really cool character, so I definitely want really cool stuff to happen with her. Because honestly, she is one of the more interesting characters that's in the show. So definitely want to see a lot of cool stuff with her happen with her. Yeah, so the commander makes the joke to Mikasa, and pretty much since the mission failed, um, Armin, who's at the wall, he wants to figure out what happened, and the way the rest of the soldiers figured out that the plan failed is because Rico, who is the blonde guy with glasses, I'm pretty sure that Rico's a guy. Um, like, I don't think Rico's a lady, even though Rico's kind of skinny, but I think Rico's a guy because I think they mentioned Rico being a guy, but because I know I watched Sawyer's review and he thought Rico was a lady, but I'm pretty sure Rico's a guy. Um, yeah, so with that said, Rico fires a red flare gun, which lets everybody know that the mission got super fucked up. So, Armin decides to abandon his post, essentially, and go run off and see what happens. And so he ends up finding Eren, and Mikasa explains to him what happened. And so he decides that he's gonna stab Eren, the Titan Eren in the nape of his neck, like not enough to kill him, but just enough to get Eren to come out of the Titan body so that they can rescue him and potentially try Titan Eren again. Um, yeah, but that doesn't really seem to be doing anything because Aaron's kind of in this hallucinatory state where he thinks he's sitting in his house with his parents and Mikasa, and that he's just kind of sleepy and chilling in a blanket. So Armin spends a lot of time yelling at Aaron to to wake up and to get out of the Titan so that they can do like Titan stuff. So, and I think and so while Armin is trying to beg Eren to get out and trying to wake him from his hallucinatory stupor, everybody else is fighting a bunch of Titans because apparently Eren in his Titan form is attracting a lot of other Titans, and he is attracting a lot of really big Titans. So this is causing a lot of issues for everybody else. So we see all the other soldiers dealing with this. So we see the elite group that was with Eren fighting a bunch of Titans. We see Mikasa take down a bunch of Titans like a boss. And then we spend some time with Jean, Connie, and Annie, where they're kind of just running towards the wall, and that their commander, who was in charge of them, almost gets eaten, but Ian from the elite group, he ends up saving them, and um, Jean ends up kind of getting really fucked because his 3D maneuvering gear ends up breaking, and so he ends up having to run away from a bunch of Titans on foot. And so, pretty much when the episode ends, um, we see Jean hiding out in an abandoned house, and he notices that there's this dead guy with the 3D gear. So he's kind of trying to, but there's like a Titan, coming down the street who's looking for him. So he's kind of debating whether or not he can make it to the dead guy and get that guy's 3D maneuvering gear off so he can use it to get the fuck out of there. And then, so we end with that. And at the same time, Armin seems to be successful with trying to prod Eren out of his hallucinatory stupor because we see Eren in his hallucination world where, it kind of starts burning down around him because Eren's, starting to get his gusto back, and, and he's starting, to get back in control of the Titans. So yeah, pretty much that's what happens this week's episode. For the preview for next week's episode, it seems like Eren does get control of the Titan body, and that he does start to move the boulder to the hole in the gate. So yeah, so hopefully that happens next week's episode, and hopefully a lot of cool actiony stuff happens next week's episode. I will admit, this week's episode and last week's episodes, even though there was like a lot of cool Titan stuff, a lot of them seem pretty fillery. And I know that this series is supposed to be about 26 episodes long, I heard. Um, Now I know that the manga that the series is based off of, I think, updates monthly. So I think the problem with the anime is I think it has to be really careful about not catching up to the manga too quickly, or else we'll get to the point where we're all caught up with the manga, and either the show will either have to go on hiatus, or it will have to do what Naruto and Bleach does and like just make a whole shit ton of filler. So I think the way it's trying to avoid making filler arcs is to just do what Dragon Ball Z did and put in canon filler, where it takes a canon segment and then just stretches it out. Um, so honestly, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I mean, the episodes are interesting, but I don't really like how like they're getting like really drawn out where not a lot's really happening. Like when you think about it, like I mean it's cool seeing people like fly around in the village and attacking the Titans, but it seems like they take one segment that probably in the manga lasted like 5 seconds and they make it last like 5 minutes. So it's like what we're watching technically is canon, but it's also technically filler. And honestly, I think like they're really stretching out the show. So I think that this is obviously really affecting the pacing. And honestly, I just hope that them doing this doesn't negatively affect the pacing, like because if they keep doing too much in canon filler, that I think that this could be problematic. And so, I mean, I know it's certainly noble of them to try to not put themselves in a situation where they'll either have to go on hiatus for a long amount of time, like the way Naruto had to between regular Naruto and Shippuden, and also they're trying to avoid doing filler arcs the way Bleach kind of does. But like honestly, I'm not sure how the in canon filler is gonna work. So hopefully I'm hoping it doesn't affect the pacing too much. I think that they should probably be really smart about how they do the in-canon filler. Because honestly, I don't think it's smart to make to draw every episode and every moment out as much as they can. Honestly, I think they should probably use the spreading stuff out a little bit more wisely. Like, I mean, honestly, I could understand. Like, I think if they did want to stretch out stuff and put in canon filler, I think it would be wiser to do it on, like, the battle parts, like where, for example, a couple episodes back when Eren was fighting the Titans, like, I think that would have been smart to drag that out and put in canon filler for that, like maybe have Eren fight the Titans and do a little bit more fighting than he actually did in the manga. But I think people would be okay with that. But I'm not so okay with them like dragging out like this exposition stuff where we just kind of have people running around and talking to each other because like that's kind of boring. And it's like I think drag out the fight stuff because I think people would enjoy that. But I think as far as people running around and stuff, like there's not really anything interesting enough. Like if they have like a moment, now it's not like I want them to like shaft all the parts where people are talking because obviously there's probably certain parts in this story where there's going to be like deep philosophical conversations, and I think it's definitely okay to drag something like that out because like it has substance. But as far as people just running around and talking, like I don't think that needs to be drug out. So I think honestly, I hope this show works out the pacing stuff and figures out how to do the in-canon filler in a way that's not boring. So, yeah, with that said, this has been a review of episode 12 of Attack on Titan. Make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And let me know what you guys think about this week's episode and the last couple episodes. And kind of any thoughts that you have on the series in general. Now, make sure don't spoil the manga because I don't read the manga. I just watch the anime. So, but other than that, just make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe, and I will see you guys again next time.